In example 2, we are going to start partial fraction decomposition. If you haven't read the material before we get to this example, please pause it now and go back and read over it. I'm going to go through the steps that are in that box above. So here we go. As you are looking for that partial fraction decomposition, the first thing you want to do is factor that denominator if it's possible. So I'm going to go ahead and factor that. So I'm going to rewrite this. It's negative 14 divided by 3x squared plus x minus 4 factors into 3x plus 4 times x minus 1. Then what I want to do is I want to break this down. So every factor that I have is going to have its own number on top. These are linear factors. Linear because this x is being raised to the first power, and this is linear again because the x is raised to the first power. So linear factors always get just one thing above it. So this is going to break down as the following. We get a over our first linear factor, which is 3x plus 4, plus we're going to put a b on top of our next linear factor, which is x minus 1. And if we had more linear factors, we would go to c, to d, and so forth as we went through it. Then what we want to do in order to solve, our goal here is to figure out what a and b are. So we want these two fractions, if we add them together, to equal what's over here on the left-hand side. So our goal right now is to figure out what's a and what's b. To do that, the very first thing you want to do is multiply by the least common denominator. And our least common denominator in this case is the 3x plus 4 times x minus 1. So as we do that, we are going to get negative 14. Actually, let's start with the red. So we have negative 14 over 3x plus 4 times x minus 1. And what we're doing is we're multiplying everything by that least common denominator. So I'm multiplying this by 3x plus 4 times x minus 1. Then this is equal to, I have a over 3x plus 4, and I am multiplying that by the same thing by 3x plus 4 times x minus 1, plus I have b over x minus 1. I'm going to have to move this over a little bit. And I am also multiplying that by 3x plus 4 times x minus 1. So basically what I have here is I have every single thing multiplied by that 3x plus 4 times x minus 1. And if we scroll over here to the beginning, you can see it here as well. Oops. Then what we're going to do is we're going to look to cancel stuff out. So if I look at my very first one, this 3x plus 4 and this 3x plus 4 will cancel, along with the x minus 1. And the only thing I'm left with here is negative 14. Equal to, if I scroll over this way, let's go just right here for now, this 3x plus 4 will cancel out with that 3x plus 4, but I'm still left with a times this x minus 1. So here I have a times x minus 1, plus, if I move over here, this b, I can get rid of the x minus 1 with this x minus 1, and I'm left with b times 3x plus 4. So let's take a look at what we have now. We have negative 14 equal to a times x minus 1 plus b times 3x plus 4. Our goal in this step is to get rid of all our fractions to make things easier to deal with. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring down my equal sign and I'm going to distribute. A times x is ax. A times negative 1 is minus a. B times 3x is a plus 3bx. And b times 4 is a plus 4b. Then my next goal is to collect everything that has an x and everything that doesn't have an x. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to group together. I have this a has an x with it, and this term has an x. So these two I'm going to move together. So I'm going to group together my ax plus 3bx. And then I'm going to group together my constants. So I have my negative a and my positive 4b. So these two got grouped together because they don't have an x, and these two are grouped together because they do have an x. Then I'm going to factor out anything that's common. So in my first group here, both of these terms have an x. So I'm going to factor that x out, and I'm left with a plus 3b. And in my next set, there's nothing common, so that will stay alone, negative a plus 4b. Now as I look to solve, again I'm looking to solve for a and for b. I'm going to remember that my left-hand side here is still a negative 14. And then I also want to note that there's no x term. So I can think of this as 0x minus 14. And so what I have over here on the right-hand side is I want this right-hand side and the left-hand side to be the same. So my number that's in front of x, which is a 0 right now, that's going to match up with this number right here. I want this to be 0 times my x. This right here, this is all my constant. There's no x here. I want this whole thing here to be negative 14. So basically what we're looking at is inside the parentheses here, this is our coefficient of x. And this stuff in this parentheses here, this is our constant. There's no x with it. So we can set up a system of equations using that information. So we can say that 0, that coefficient in front of x here, has to be the same as the coefficient of x on the right-hand side. So 0 has to equal a plus 3b. We can also say that our constant, which is negative 14, has to equal our constant that's over here on the right. And let's get rid of this. Okay, so the constant has to be the same. So this negative 14 has to be the same here. So our other equation, we could say negative 14 equals negative a plus 4b. And then what we have is a system to solve. So what we want to do is we want to solve this system. And you can use any of your methods you used or you've learned to solve a system. This one looks like solving it using the elimination method is going to be our best bet. So I'm going to rewrite it over here. I have 0 equals a plus 3b, and negative 14 equals negative a plus 4b. Since my a's are already opposites, I can just go ahead and add these two together. So 0 plus negative 14 is negative 14. My a's will cancel, and I get 7b. If I divide both sides by 7, I get b is equal to negative 2. And if I know b is equal to negative 2, I can use this equation or this equation to solve for a. So I'm going to use the top equation. If I know b is equal to negative 2, then I can say that 0 equals a minus 6. So I know a is equal to 6 if I add the 6 over to the other side. So then what I want to do is I want to write my final answer. So if I move this up just a little bit, my answer here is going to be plugging into the very beginning. So I'm going to scroll up for a second so you can see it. This is where we started, and this is where we want to end. We want to take the a value we've got and plug it into this fraction, and the b value that we got and plug it in here. So if we go back down to our answer, it should look like this. We have 6 over 3x plus 4 plus negative 2 over x minus 1. If you have any questions, please let me know.